like that Mr. Davis is present in custody.
We now know when the man accused of killing rap superstar Tupac Shakur will be in court on trial for murder. Law&Crime's Angenette Levy joins us to talk about what's next as we inch toward a trial in this decades-long case. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, so right now, the man believed to be behind the murder of 90s rap icon Tupac Shakur is in a Las Vegas jail awaiting trial. And we now know when that trial is expected to happen. A Nevada judge set a date of June 3rd, 2024. So 60-year-old Duane Davis, also known as Keefe, has pleaded not guilty to the charge of murder with the use of a deadly weapon. He's accused of orchestrating the death of Tupac Shakur in 1996 on the Las Vegas Strip. And it was Davis's own words talking about that night that this way we got here. I mean, over the years, he talked about that fateful night in a memoir and in interviews.
Drake got cold feet. He didn't want to do it. He gave the gun to Orlando, and Orlando shot Tupac and Suge.
Yeah, he did his thing, yeah.
The shooting happened after a confrontation that involved Tupac Shakur, his record producer Suge Knight, and Davis's nephew Orlando Anderson at the MGM Grand. Now, after the fight, the allegation is that Davis and three other men, including his nephew Anderson, got into a car, went looking for Shakur and Knight, and when they found them, Davis allegedly passed a gun to the back seat. It's long been believed that Anderson is the one who shot at the car that Shakur and Knight were in, killing Shakur, but it also could have been the other gang member in the back seat, DeAndre Smith. Either way, Davis is accused of handing them the gun, knowing what was going to happen. He is the only person from that car still alive today. Davis is originally from Compton, California. He was reportedly a leader with the Southside Compton Crips gang. He'd been living in Las Vegas when police arrested him. And for now, Davis has two public defenders. They're actually hoping to get him out of jail on bond ahead of next summer's trial. I want to bring in right now Law&Crime's Angenette Levy, who's been following this case very closely, has attended some of Davis's court hearings in Las Vegas, and is also the new host of Crime Fix, which we're going to talk about. First of all, Angenette, great to see you. I have to tell you, I love when you report from Las Vegas. The thing that I love the most are your videos where you go, "We're back in Vegas, baby. We're back." Gotta say, love
Vegas,
those
baby.
videos. Vegas, baby. But you've been the eyes and ears on this case. So I'm going to ask you, I think you're probably the best person to ask. You think that trial date's going to stick? June 2024?
Well, Jesse, thanks for having me. It's good to see you too. And I'm not really sure. That's the answer. It all depends, I guess, on whether or not Keefe wants that trial date to stick. We don't know if he will actually be released on bail, because this is a big case. You know, this is a case that is now 27 years old, and he's accused of ordering a murder and providing the murder weapon to his nephew in order to shoot Tupac Shakur. As you mentioned, his own words kind of got this investigation going again into the murder. And that's largely why he was arrested. So I'm not sure. His public defenders who are now assigned to his case have declined interview requests, saying to the AP that there's a voluminous amount of evidence to go through and they haven't looked at any of it. So if there's that much evidence to go through, this may get pushed out. But Keefe also may say, let's get this going. I'm 60 years old. I'm not in great health. I want to get this trial over with. So I think it's a wait and see, but I would be surprised if it went next June.
Okay, so we want to thank Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this video. I think it's pretty clear from the stories that we cover that it's not always safe out there. When you're hurt, it can be pretty confusing. It can be scary. You don't know where to turn. Well, Morgan & Morgan is actually the largest injury law firm in America. And at a time when you already have so much to think about, they make it super easy for you. They've completely modernized the process because you submit your claim, you sign contracts, you upload documents, and you talk to your whole legal team all on your phone. That's it. An attorney's going to review your case in just 8 clicks. Also, they have 4,000 support staff that can help you through the process too, which is just amazing to think about. And in terms of price, you only pay them if you win. There's no upfront fee. So if you're injured, you want to join the over 3 million people that call them every year, you can submit a claim at www.forthepeople.com/law&crime or by dialing #law, that's #529 on your phone. What is some of the evidence you're looking out for that you know that led to his arrest and which prosecutors will use to prove he's guilty of this?
Well, Jesse, I want to see more than what we've already seen. That's what I'm looking out for, because we know about the Compton Street Legend book that he wrote, right? We know about the countless
And real quick,
interviews
what did he
he's
say?
given.
What did he say in the book, and what did he say in the interviews? Briefly.
Well, in Compton Street Legend, he writes about being in the vehicle in the white Cadillac that night. And he said he had gotten this Glock. And he said, I don't know if this is a direct quote, but I've read the excerpt. And he says he tossed the Glock in the back seat. And then they pull up. He says he locks eyes with Suge Knight. It was like two bulls or goats or whatever, locking horns, locking eyes. And he said, Suge said, "Oh my God." It was a little bit more colorful language than that,
Sure.
saying it's on, that Suge knew what was about to happen. So this is a very descriptive narrative of what he says happened when Tupac Shakur was killed that night. So we have the book, obviously, in which he details all of this and says he's the last witness basically alive to this. And then we have all of the interviews that he's given to YouTube channels and also to BET for the Death Row Chronicles, in which he plainly admits that he was in the vehicle that night. So I want to see what else they have. They have to have more than just this. That's my understanding and my belief, because they executed a search warrant at his home in recent months. And so they seized a lot of items from that home. So I want to know what else is there. There has to be more than just what we've heard about so far.
Yeah, I mean, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is this search, it resulted in them looking or obtaining an iPhone, a computer, laptops, tablets. There was, I think one was shattered, or one was in it had a shattered screen. A copy of the book that you mentioned. There was an issue of Vibe magazine about Tupac Shakur, along with these 2 black tubs of photographs and what authorities alleged was purported marijuana. I mean, what do you imagine they found in there that would link him? Because we're also dealing with an older crime from 1996. We didn't have cell phone text messages back then. So I'm curious what you think they might have found. Anything in your reporting that would indicate what else they might have?
I don't know what else they might have. They talked about seizing, obviously, electronics, his computer. And you have to keep in mind, this book, Compton Street Legend, was published in 2019, and he had help writing that. So you would think there might be some electronic evidence going back and forth about a manuscript or what have you, maybe some emails back and forth. Also, Jesse, there's been a lot of talk about 40 caliber shell casings that were seized from Keefe D's home. And so obviously this is 27 years later. Let's say it's the same caliber that killed the 40 caliber, or is the same caliber that killed Tupac Shakur. I mean, it would be absolutely crazy if the ammunition matched. But what if it's the same brand? What if it's something Keefe D, liked, the same, type of ammunition that was used to kill Tupac Shakur? We don't know that. This is me kind of,
Right.
looking through this and thinking about what might be there. But there was ammunition seized as well. And I had spoken with a former Las Vegas Metro Police officer who told me that he was hearing that Keefe D may have been selling things on eBay or selling things to people saying, this is from this or this is from that. So it's a very strange thing. And I think there's just a lot more that we don't yet know about. We're just kind of scratching the surface here with the book and with the interviews.
And something else to add here is my understanding the grand jury also voted to add a sentencing enhancement. So if he's found guilty, the sentencing enhancement is about gang activity. And so if he's found guilty, that could add additional years if he's ultimately convicted. So I imagine they're trying to find evidence about his gang affiliations as well, right?
Well, I don't think they have to look very far for evidence of his gang affiliations, because he basically says he was a South Compton Crips gang leader. And I've spoken to people who were members of the Compton Police Department back then when all of this was going on. And they told me they knew within a couple of days that Keefe D and his nephew Orlando Anderson were involved in this, but it was getting the evidence to actually prove that. That was the issue. And so Keefe D, he is considered, according to this gang expert I spoke to, an OG, an original gangster back in Compton. Like, he was a big deal and he was a big drug dealer. So I don't think they're going to have to look very hard
Hmm.
for evidence that he was a gang leader with the South Side Compton Crips.
And for this murder charge, which we're talking about, I mean, the jury could find him guilty if A, they believe he directly committed the murder, or B, if he aided and abetted the commission of the crime. That's the way that the language actually adds to it. I want to talk about his defense a little bit. Before we get even into his attorneys trying to get him released pre-trial, talk to me about what you're seeing as a potential defense here. Are they just going to say, look at the prosecution's evidence and say they can't meet their burden, he didn't do it? Are they going to point to any alternative suspects? Any idea what we can expect from a potential defense?
Well, when he was represented for just a brief time by a Las Vegas defense attorney, Ross Goodman had told me, there were obvious defenses to this. He didn't go into great detail, but he said that. Now, Ross Goodman's not on the case. I think that Keefe couldn't come up with the money to pay him, and that's why we have public defenders on the case. But I think that you might see, once they start going through all of this, they might say, you know what? This is some 60-year-old guy from Compton. Yeah, he was in a gang. But he's full of bluster and he was blowing smoke. He was looking for some street cred. He does some years in prison for drug dealing, some pretty serious drug dealing charges. And he needed something to kind of offer to the cops to get them off his back. He had that proffer years back where he offered up what happened that night that couldn't be used against him in court. But then he started talking outside of that in the 2018 or so about all of this. So I think it could be, they can't prove this. There's no murder weapon. There's no white Cadillac anymore. There's no physical evidence left except from what Las Vegas Metro has in their possession with regard to the shell casings that were and the rounds that were taken out of Tupac Shakur during an autopsy, which is sadly very gruesome. But I think that you're going to see that maybe it's going to be like, this is just some old guy who got out of prison and he was looking for some clout and he's kind of full of it.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good defense. I mean, if he comes forward with that and says, look, there's no eyewitnesses, there's no DNA, there's no forensics time. I'm just, I was trying to make street cred. I was trying to ultimately bolster my image a little bit. I'm in a dangerous environment. Of course I said this. Doesn't make it true. I mean, we've seen that argument before in other kinds of trials. I'd be very interested to see that. And so obviously I agree with you, what the prosecution has when trial starts versus what the defense is going to be put forward. Before we even get to that, though, his attorneys are trying to get him released from jail pending trial, right? What is their argument? It has to do with his health?
Well, I don't know if they'll go there. Maybe they will. But I think the most viable argument, and Jesse, in talking with some lawyers out there in Vegas, it's my understanding that if they file this bond motion, it could be almost like a mini trial where we could see more of what the prosecution claims they have to prove to the judge, look, you got to keep this guy in jail. But I think the defense will say, this is a guy who is 60 years old. Did he do time for dealing drugs in federal prison? Of course he did. Yes, he did. But he's been living here in Henderson, Nevada for, more than 10 years. And he hasn't been getting into trouble. He's living in the suburbs with his wife who has a job. And, he's been living life on, he's been living a straight life, a clean life. So this is somebody who is not the threat to the public. You could throw an ankle bracelet on him and everything would be just fine. So if you're a defense attorney, I think that's the route that you're going to go. Yeah, his health isn't great, but look, he's 60 years old and he hasn't been in trouble since he went to prison for dealing drugs.
But he has cancer. Did his attorneys confirm that?
They haven't told me that and confirmed that, but there's been discussion out there about him maybe having cancer or he's had cancer. But he's also carries a little bit of extra weight on him, as a lot of people do as they get older. Of course that doesn't help matters. So I think really they're going to focus on the fact that he hasn't been in trouble since he did that time in federal prison.
Right. And by the way, even besides if they have a hearing on that, there's a hearing scheduled for January 9th, right? Do we know what that's about?
I think that's just going to be some sort of status to look at where we stand with everything. The evidence, as I said, has been described as voluminous. So we're probably going to hear a little bit about that. You're going to see some motions filed too. I can't imagine that we won't have some type of motion filed before January 9th. That, the attorneys have got to be able to dig into that a little bit in between the holidays and things like that.
I don't know. Angenette, we may see you in Vegas in June, ready to go at the slots 1 minute, at the courtroom the next, back in Vegas, baby. I'm going to hope for it. But
Jesse, I have to say, every time I go to Vegas, I never go to the slot. I never have time to go to the slots. Like I know that our one of our friends here at Law&Crime wanted me to go to the roulette table and do a spin. I didn't get to do that, but I don't object. I do not object if we want to use some court talk to going to Vegas in January. Please, yes, send me to Vegas in January so I can be warm. June, it's going to be kind of hot.
It's a dry heat. It's a dry heat. Here's what's going to happen. Angenette's going to win the big jackpot at the airport. And then we're going to have to send somebody else because she's going to quit her job. I know it. But before you quit your job and win the jackpot, my understanding is you have a brand new show. It is called Crime Fix. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so Crime Fix is a new show that we're launching here on Law&Crime. It will be on every Monday through Friday, weekdays, of course, at 6 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel and wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And really, we're going to give you a rundown of the day's biggest stories in the world of law and crime. And something that we really want to do with this is give this to people succinctly and quickly, but accurately. And we don't want to color this with any big personal opinions. Yes, we will have people kind of on the show who will voice their opinions, but we really want to give you the information straight. There's so much misinformation that spreads out there on the internet these days. And we want to really be a source where people can trust us to just say, here are the facts. Here's what we know right now. Maybe this will change down the road, but this is where we are right now. And we're going to do that every day. And we really hope people will tune in and enjoy the show and give us their ideas as well. So we're going to be looking for lots of really great stories that maybe people don't know about.
That's awesome. And I know, Angenette, you and I both know that when we went to CrimeCon, one of the number one things people said is they appreciate, particularly, is the reporting is accurate. We tell them what they need to know, what they should know, because, like you said, there's a lot of misinformation. So Crime Fix, everybody check it out. I saw the promo for it. Looks amazing. Angenette Levy, great seeing you. Thanks so much for the update on Keefe.
Yeah, no problem. And Jesse, I hope you'll come on 1 or 2 times and join us. Maybe you'll pop on every once in a while and hang out. All
right, you got it. I'll see you then. And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.